LoveLore Library. Chapter 95. As for the previous farce about the love triangle, Li Hongyuan was also very straightforward at the beginning. He directly threatened that he liked Sun Yilin, so he might as well let him enter the residence with Sun Yijia. In ancient times, there was a beautiful story of a sister serving a husband. Now that he had a sister serving a husband, it might become a beautiful thing many years later. Not to mention Le Qingdi and Duke Dinghua, even the empress was very angry. In the past, whenever Li Hongyuan caused trouble, although she stood in the empress's position and demanded severe punishment, out of 10 times, at least 7 or 8 times, she was just putting on a show. Although she was angry about the other 2 or 3 times, it was only 20 or 30%. This time, her anger soared to 12%. Although Li Hongyi was a good-for-nothing, he was still her son and the biggest chess piece in her desire to seize power. Without this son, all her schemes would be in vain. However, Li Hongyuan ruthlessly injured him. Li Hongyi also said that at that moment, he really felt that Li Hongyuan wanted to kill him. She didn't think that her son would lie to her about this kind of thing. How could this be? There was also Sun Yilin, who was her most promising nephew and also a good chess piece she had prepared. The higher his status at Le Qingdi's side, the more advantageous it would be for her future. Otherwise, why would she repeatedly create opportunities for Sun Yilin to show his face in front of the emperor? Everything was going smoothly. Le Qingdi didn't like the people of Duke Dinghua's mansion, except for Sun Yilin. In addition, Sun Yilin was even more famous. With his appearance, he was bound to win over more talents of the same generation. When things became clear in the future, even if he knew that she, the Empress Dowager behind the scenes, had the final say, he didn't need to blatantly express his support for her. He only needed to remain silent. Then, there would be a lot less memorials to depose her, and she would have a lot less trouble. One day, she would be able to naturally interfere in court affairs and no one would say anything. But Li Hongyuan wanted to destroy him. So, how could she not be angry? It was also because of this that this time, she was truly going against noble consort Su. Compared to the Empress's people, imperial concubine Su and the others were unusually carefree, especially Li Hongming. He secretly regretted that Li Hongyuan didn't directly kill Li Hongyuan. In this way, he only needed to sacrifice him. Not only would he lose his biggest competitor, but he would also be the most legitimate successor in terms of etiquette. However, he also knew that Li Hongyuan was not stupid. How could he so easily stain his brother's life? However, as his mother, even if imperial concubine Su felt that her opponent deserved it, she still had to teach him a lesson. Therefore, unlike the Empress who insisted on severely punishing Li Hongyuan, she scolded Li Hongyuan while pleading with Le Qingdi. The 2 most noble women in the imperial harem also began to quarrel. The Empress said that imperial concubine Su had to take the main responsibility for Li Hongyuan's current situation. It was she who didn't teach the prince well and had let down the emperor's grace. Imperial concubine Su said that Li Hongyuan was just playing with Sun Yilin. It was Li Hongyi who started it first. If he didn't resist, would he just wait to be beaten to death? One had to know that her son was still injured. Li Hongyi was so vicious that if he wasn't his brother, he wouldn't be the eldest brother. Her Yuan should be punished, and he couldn't escape the blame. The back and forth was really lively. In contrast, Le Qingdi was strangely calm. Le Qingdi received a bunch of memorials to impeach Li Hongyuan. This matter was different from the past. Li Hongyuan had lost the face of the imperial family. Not to mention imperial concubine Su and Li Hongming's opponents, even most of the neutral members of the imperial family demanded severe punishment. Otherwise, how could they restore the imperial prestige? Le Qingdi's strange attitude this time was unknown. It was unknown whether it was because he was used to Li Hongyuan causing trouble from time to time, or because he had already expected this day to come when he first heard that his son was in love with Nan Feng. He even had the interest to look through the memorials that accused Li Hongyuan of 10 major crimes. As he read, he laughed happily. Hee, look at our son. He's different from others. He's been so energetic since he was young. If he didn't cause trouble one day, I would find it strange. Seeing such an abnormal Luqingdi, the attendants all pretended to be deaf and dumb. Anyway, there would be a few days like this every year. Mother, how will father punish sixth brother this time? Li Hongyi asked Imperial Concubine Su. Imperial Concubine Su was startled and said with a bit of sadness, there won't be any punishment. Yuan Er's birth mother's death anniversary has arrived. If he hadn't been assassinated, he would still be praying in White Dragon Temple. The imperial noble consort back then, what exactly, Ming, this isn't something you should ask. It won't do you any good to know. Mother, how will father punish sixth brother? Li Hongyi, who was recuperating in Kunyi Palace, pounded the bed and asked the Empress with hatred in his eyes. The Empress looked at him coldly. I just told you not to go against him. You just left the palace and you directly attacked him. You completely ignored my words. Now you're asking me, isn't it too unnecessary? The hatred in Li Hongyi's eyes immediately dissipated. As a man, he looked at the Empress at a loss. Mother, it's not that I don't listen to you. It's just that Li Hongyuan, that bastard, is too infuriating. I was muddle-headed for a moment. The Empress sneered, the result of being muddle-headed for a moment is that you lost all your advantages. Even if you were reasonable, you became unreasonable. You still want Li Hongyuan to be punished. You haven't woken up yet. I'm injured like this. Are we just going to let it go like this? Li Hongyi was so angry that his eyes were red. That's because you're not as skilled as others. You asked for it. Besides, Li Hongyuan is your father's favorite. Who do you think you are? If he is severely punished, do you think you can escape? It's good enough that your father can give you some compensation. Besides, the imperial noble consort's death anniversary is approaching. These days, your father is the most unreasonable. It's possible that he will punish you and reward Li Hongyuan. Think about it carefully. How many old officials actually impeached Li Hongyuan? Even if they did, it's just for show. After the initial anger, the Empress immediately thought that this time she might only suffer a loss. However, she had already made a fuss. She couldn't stop just because she wanted to. Otherwise, how could she explain to her own people? It was hard to get off a tiger. She could only continue to make a fuss. The result was probably that Luqingdi would be even more annoyed. Because of this, it was more and more depressing. Since the imperial noble consort is so important, why didn't anyone mention her in the past few years? Why didn't my father worship her on her death anniversary every year? I said you're stupid. You're really stupid. Do I have to tell you clearly before you understand? That woman's death is strange. Is it strange that your father doesn't worship her? How many people will remember a person who has been dead for more than 20 years? Because your father is the Son of Heaven, his every move is watched, so that woman hasn't been completely forgotten. Those old officials who know about this clearly know that your father hates it. Who will be stupid enough to spread it everywhere? They know that your father is abnormal on these days every year, so naturally, they won't provoke him. This year, Li Hongyuan happened to cause trouble, so... The Empress paused. Maybe Li Hongyuan also chose this time to deliberately provoke you. Maybe someone wants to take advantage of this special day to assassinate him in White Dragon Temple. But each of you lost people. Who will benefit the most? Because his own mother said that he was stupid, Li Hongyi almost refuted her and said that she also gave birth to him. But in the end, he couldn't say it. He was angry, but he couldn't say it. Now, seeing that she was still lost in thought and didn't take him seriously at all, Li Hongyi didn't know how to react. Maybe it was because he was stupid and easy to control that he could live well until now. If he was smarter and didn't obediently be a pawn in her hand, she could naturally ruthlessly abandon him. Maybe she could use him to plot against noble consort Su once and then adopt someone who would listen to her. Li Hongyi thought that it was rare for him to be smart, but the result was so sad. Yilin's attitude is a bit strange this time. Wasn't it very strange? From the beginning to the end, Sun Yilin was very quiet and calm. Except for telling the truth about the incident, he didn't say anything else. He didn't judge others right or wrong. Even when he faced Lu Qingdi with others, he was the same. He didn't get angry because of being humiliated, nor did he pretend to be calm. Duke Ding let him take the position of the victim's family and let Lu Qingdi make a decision for him. He was bound to get justice. Sun Yilin just looked at him for a moment and then opened his mouth. Actually, I'm not father's son. Otherwise, why didn't you consider me even once? Evil creature, what did you say? Duke Ding didn't know if it was because he was disobeyed or because Sun Yilin had seen through his thoughts. He felt that he was ashamed of this son and used anger to cover himself. Isn't it? Father clearly thinks that I haven't lost enough face. Do I have to cry endlessly like a woman and beg for death to make you satisfied? Does my good Dage wish that I could really do as Jin Qinhuang wishes and enter Jin Qinhuang Fu with Mimi and completely sweep away this obstacle of mine? How can you think of your Dage like that? When you were young, he treated you so well, don't you know? You're also talking about when I was young. If it wasn't because of the affection when I was young, would I have tolerated it until now? Father, what did he do in the end, and how much did you tacitly allow? I won't list them one by one, so as not to completely cut off the last bit of kinship. What you do, I don't care. But what I do, you'd better not care. Although the relationship between Duke Ding and Sun Yilin was thin, Sun Yilin still didn't contradict him. Suddenly, Duke Ding only felt that his dignity as a father was seriously provoked. Evil creature, you're rebelling against the heavens. At the same time, he slapped him. However, Sun Yilin really rebelled against the heavens. He grabbed Duke Ding's hand. Even if I'm rebelling against the heavens, it's because you forced me. Evil creature, you still dare to fight with Laozi. Do you believe that Laozi will expel you from the family? Sun Yilin sneered. When I was in White Dragon Temple, I asked Mother to bring you a few words. Obviously, she didn't tell you. Father, you might as well go and ask. After asking clearly, you can decide how to deal with me. If you really want to expel me from the family, I will frown. Once I leave the gate of Duke Ding's mansion, I will die without a burial place. But before that, I have to have a good contest with my good Dage. You might as well let me take a good look at Dage's ability after running the business for so many years and with your help. Shaking off Duke Ding's hand, he turned and strode away. Duke Ding looked at Sun Yilin's back as he left. Just like Duchess Ding at White Dragon Temple, he was a little stunned. When did his son become so tough? However, his ruthlessness made him look like a real member of the Sun family. But why was his attitude toward the family instead of the outside world? Duke Ding couldn't help but reflect on whether he had really done something wrong. He also knew that he was ashamed of his son and admitted that his son was better than the eldest son. It wasn't that he didn't hesitate, but he knew very well that there couldn't be two tigers on one mountain. Everything he did was for Duke Ding's mansion. If his son was the eldest son, then there would be no problem. Unfortunately, there weren't so many ifs in the world. Of course, he was angry to expel his son from the family. If he really did that, he didn't know how many people would laugh at him. People such as his mother and the Empress sister would definitely kill him. Not only that, if he dared to do so, his son would be received with the courtesy of a distinguished guest when he went out. How stupid would he be to do such a thing that would harm himself and benefit others? However, his wife had concealed such an important thing, so he had to ask her immediately. If he didn't know the thoughts of his son, who he thought he understood very well, but in fact, he didn't understand at all, he would only be more passive and lose his dignity as a father. Not to mention how Duke Ding and his wife quarreled, Sun Yilin also let Li Hongyuan talk nonsense there. He insisted that there was something unusual between them. Anyway, when he had enough, this matter would be almost over. In the past few days, Lu Qingdi had always been kind to Li Hongyuan. In the end, he even said, "Yuan, just tell me directly. What do you want? If you really want a male concubine, I'll help you." "Your Majesty." More than one person hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "Shut up. I'm not asking you." As gentle as the spring breeze, he became as cold as ice in the blink of an eye. Only a few people had seen Lu Qingdi like this more than 20 years ago. Even if it was an emperor with a relatively gentle temperament, as long as he was in power, as long as he was the real emperor, no one could stop him when he decided to do something. The so-called thunder and rain were all the grace of the emperor. Li Hongyuan's face was expressionless. In his previous life, his father had not been so indulgent towards him. In fact, his father had been very cold towards him. Other than the fact that he was not a bastard, it was also because of his outstanding performance. That's right. Li Hongyuan knew very early that the more he was a bastard and the more trouble he caused, the better his father would treat him. In his previous life, it was not strange that he could finally learn about his biological mother from imperial concubine Su, who was imprisoned by him. As his father, he wanted to compensate him, but he didn't have the courage to go to the extreme. After all, in his eyes, the country was more important, so he could only use this kind of doting and indulgence to make up for it. In any case, his goal had already been achieved. Aken just saw that eldest imperial brother looked like he wanted to eat Aken alive, so Aken was angry at him. Male concubine, there's no need for Aken to set this precedent. Lu Qingdi nodded, indicating that he understood. No matter how much other people said, he would not listen or not believe. His son wanted to waste time, so he also wasted time like this. Now that Li Hongyuan said something, he completely believed it, so the matter was over. He gently comforted his son and even said that it was Li Hongyi's fault as an elder brother. When he returned, he would let him apologize to him. Then, thinking that his injuries had not healed, he told him to quickly go back and recuperate. The next day, a large number of rewards were bestowed, plus the rewards that were given to him because of Sun Yijia's matter. Good things flowed into Jin Qinhuang Fu like water. Did Lu Qingdi empty his private storehouse of good things? When the rewards arrived at Jin Qinhuang Fu, it was also not long after the drunk Sun Yilin was sent back to Dingguogong Fu. Sun Yilin was the victim's family, so Lu Qingdi also rewarded him with a lot of things. He let the chamberlain leave a message, saying that it was his evil spawn son's fault. Sun Yilin would do as he should in the future, and Lu Qingdi would not bear any grudges against him. After all, Li Hongyi was also injured, so Lu Qingdi also expressed his apology. However, Lu Qingdi's appeasement to him was one matter. As an elder brother, he had acted against his younger brother, so it was necessary for him to apologize. Li Hongyi, who had already been sent back to Kong Qinhuang Fu, was so angry that his internal organs almost exploded. Although it was not consistent with what Muhu said, it was not far from the truth. Even if he knew that there was such a possibility, when it came to it, he still hated. If he was not stopped, he would have smashed the things that Lu Qingdi bestowed him. Li Hongyuan threw out 3 articles, and not long after, he came out to receive his reward. Seeing too many good things, Li Hongyuan didn't even lift his eyelids. He let people casually reward the chamberlain who delivered the things, and then moved the things back to the storehouse. As for how to organize it, there was no need for Li Hongyuan to instruct. Mu Gonggong would take care of it properly. In any case, it was enough to follow one principle: things that the future Wang Fei might like, things that she would use, should be properly kept. As for the other things, no matter how precious, should be directly kept at the bottom of the chest and stuffed into the innermost part. Although Li Hongyuan's temper was very bad, when it came to sending things to his fu, the chamberlain still fought over it. There was no other way. Li Hongyuan's hands were wide, and any random reward would not be less than 100 taels. This was a good thing that would not happen anywhere else. Once again, Luqingdi's actions were known to the entire capital at the fastest speed. Whether it was those who already knew that he had no bottom line towards Li Hongyuan, or those who had just entered the capital and hadn't heard of it, they were all speechless for a long time. Then, those who were in the know warned those who were not in the know that in the capital, no matter who they provoked, they shouldn't provoke the king of hell, Jin Qinhuang Li Hongyuan. If they met him, it was best to stay far away from him. At the same time, some people's thoughts began to become active. This Jin Qinhuang was so favored, maybe in the future he could, if he was under his tutelage. In the blink of an eye, this idea was ruthlessly dispelled. In the past, it wasn't that no one had done this, but the end was very miserable. Before entering the gate of Jin Qinhuang Fu, their legs were broken and they were thrown out. If there were still people who didn't give up, what was thrown out was a human skin. If their lives were gone, what glory, splendor, wealth, and rank could they talk about? However, Luqingdi had said that this was only a misunderstanding. In the end, nothing happened. Sun Yilin, Gongzi Lin, still wanted to drown his sorrows in wine, borrowing drunkenness to become crazy. What was the reason? Sun Yilin being carried back in a drunken state naturally alarmed everyone in the fu. Whether it was genuine concern or fake concern, one by one, they all gathered in Sun Yilin's courtyard. Unfortunately, no matter who asked, Sun Yilin kept his mouth shut. When he was annoyed, he directly told them to scram. People who didn't lose their temper were the scariest when they lost their temper. When Sun Yijia arrived, Sun Yilin's door was surrounded by 3 layers of people. They thought that they were whispering very softly, but when there were so many people, they joined together, just like those annoying flies. Sun Yijia looked on coldly. Suddenly, a servant girl bumped into her from the side and pulled off her veil, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally. Ah! A scream instantly attracted everyone's attention. Then, they all saw the hideous wound on Sun Yijia's face. One by one, they subconsciously covered their mouths. Previously, they didn't see how badly she was injured, but they didn't expect it to be so serious. There were some who sympathized, but there were even more who gloated. Older sister, I'm sorry. Younger sister was suddenly frightened, so, no, actually, that. A girl who was dressed very delicately was frightened. She was trembling, but she pretended to be calm and stammered as she explained. She looked very pitiful. The servant girl who bumped into Sun Yijia also knelt on the ground, kowtowing and begging for mercy. Ah! Older sister Jia's face, slap, a crisp sound rang out, and everyone fell silent. They looked in disbelief at Sun Yilin, who had just finished hitting Sun Yilin and calmly put back his veil. Noisy. She gently glanced at the servant girl on the ground and said, "Take this impetuous servant girl away and flog her 50 times. After 50 flogs, those who were in good condition could still be alive, but most of them would directly die." The servant girl was scared and really kowtowed to beg for mercy. After a few thuds, blood appeared on her forehead. However, Sun Yilin was completely unmoved. 2 strong old maids behind her directly came forward, gagged the servant girl, and dragged her away. The girl who had been beaten covered her face, and her eyes were full of hatred. However, probably because she was used to enduring, she didn't lose her temper. But her tears rolled down like a broken string of beads. Older sister, I just. She was very aggrieved. If you dare to say one more word, I will make you become like me. Sun Yilin touched her face meaningfully. In the eyes of everyone, Sun Yijia, who was disfigured, was like a mad dog. Who knew if she really did what she said? Others didn't dare to say anything, but the girl's mother was very distressed. Her face was beaten so hard that it was obviously swollen. In 3 days, it would be Great Elder Princess's birthday. What should she do if the swelling still didn't go down? Sister Jia, as the saying goes, when it is possible to forgive, forgive. Besides, your sister is just timid. She is not. Sun Yijia glanced at her coldly and said, I am teaching a servant girl and a sister of a concubine a lesson. As a concubine, how dare you interrupt? Who gave you the courage? This is my 5th brother's courtyard. As a concubine, what are you doing here? This is the outer courtyard, and my 5th brother is not a child of 3 or 5 years old. Do you still have any manners? What's the matter? Could it be that you despise my father for being old, so you're recommending yourself to my 5th brother? Sun Yilin's words were undeniably vicious, and she overturned a group of people with one stroke. The onlookers' faces turned pale, and it was very interesting. Sister Jia, how can you say that? Where is your upbringing? Sun Yijia glanced at the aunt who spoke, and said, upbringing. Then tell me, what did I say or do wrong? She had nothing to say. This was indeed not a place where they should have come. At most, it would be good enough if the brothers and sisters came to take a look. Even if the aunts wanted to come, they had to choose the right time. It was broad daylight now, and Sun Yilin's close friends might come to visit. It was not good to bump into them, not to mention those concubines who usually could not go out without the guidance of the head wife. My mother has only relaxed for a few days, and each of you has become wild. You dare to ignore the rules and run to the outer courtyard. You even arrogantly preach to me. Based on your current actions, I can lock you all up in the family temple. Although Sun Yijia said a few concubines, she was also hinting at them. My son is right. I have been so busy recently that I forgot. Each of you has begun to jump around. Immediately scram back. Your salary will be deducted for 3 months, and you will be grounded for 3 months. You will also have to copy the female admonition 1,000 times. Duchess Ding had not had time to change out of the heavy makeup she had put on because of receiving the imperial edict. She looked graceful and noble. With a cold face, she looked dignified without being angry. This attire was a thorn in the eyes of almost every married woman present. It was a symbol of status. Madam, you can't. A concubine who looked not much older than Sun Yijia said angrily. Do you really want to live in the family temple? Duchess Ding said coldly, oh, by the way, you can also go to the Duke to plead for mercy. Let's see if the Duke will come to me to put in a good word for you. There was a hint of mockery and disdain in her voice. As long as there was no real problem with the inner courtyard's affairs or there was a reason for it, this man would generally not intervene. If they met a head wife who was willing to pretend to be virtuous and magnanimous, the concubines should thank the heavens. When she shed all pretense of cordiality and did not intend to play with them anymore, if they dared to bump into her, it was no different from courting death. Why are you still here? Are you waiting for me, your sister-in-law, to invite you one by one? They had thought that her daughter and son had been in trouble one after another, and they heard that she quarreled with Duke Ding almost every day. Moreover, the inner courtyard of Duke Ding's mansion was really loose. They all thought that she had really lost power this time, and it was time for those young and beautiful concubines and their daughters to make a comeback. It turned out that she was not. A tiger was a tiger after all. Don't think that you can be a tyrant when it takes a nap. When it gets angry again, it can crush you to death with one paw. It seemed that not only Sun Yijia but also the head wife of Duke Ding's mansion went crazy. They immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Even if these girls were deprived of the opportunity to go to Great Elder Princess's mansion, they did not dare to say more. Duchess Ding's face softened. Yijia, I'm sorry to make you suffer. Sun Yijia twitched the corners of her mouth, but when she thought that her mother could not see it, she no longer forced herself. After all, there was a gap between mother and daughter. Even if they seemed to be closer than before on the surface, in fact, it was not the case. Mother, I'm not wronged. Then they looked at each other speechlessly and walked into the room at the same time, trying to dispel the invisible embarrassment. Chapter 96. At first, the mother and daughter didn't react. Before they could ask, they already understood. Sister Wan is engaged. How is that possible? It's only been a few days, and there's been no news at all. Sun Yijia found it hard to accept. Duchess Ding also opened her mouth. In fact, she was actually happy in her heart. Even if such a daughter-in-law was impeccable and she could lower her requirements for her family background, it was difficult for her to accept the fact that her son placed her at the top of his heart. But now that she saw her son in so much pain, and that he, who had never been drunk, had a pale face, she really felt extremely distressed. Yilin, it's just an engagement. If you're really not the third young lady of the Luo family, I'll think of a way to get the man to break off the engagement. Then, I'll take advantage of this time to propose marriage to the Luo family. I think the Luo family has no reason to refuse. Sun Yijia pursed her lips when she heard this. She didn't agree with her mother's domineering style, but this matter was related to the marriage of her closest brother. There were some things that she knew to be despicable, but for the people she cared about, she might still do it without hesitation. However, she still wanted to hear her fifth brother's opinion now. Sun Yilin laughed bitterly. Mother, if I do this, what kind of person will I be? Breaking up people's karma first and taking advantage of people's difficulties later. How many people are watching our Duke Ding's mansion? Once we do this kind of thing, it will definitely be known immediately. Bullying people can be a big or small thing. At that time, not only father, but also the empress and the clansmen will blame mother. There are also many people watching mother, waiting for you to make a mistake. Besides, what I've been scheming is bound to be something that some people will try their best to destroy. Once these people get involved, what are the chances of me getting what I want? And in the end, it's even more likely to harm Miss Luo. I don't want to be labeled as a despicable person in her heart. But Yilin, you're making mother's heart ache. Duchess Ding couldn't help but wipe her tears. Mother, I'm fine. I just drank a little too much. I'll be fine after I recover. Sun Yilin closed his eyes. When he spoke again, there was endless bitterness in his voice. In the end, my fate with her was too shallow. Yilin, don't be like this. I'll find you a better girl. I won't be stubborn. Let's not care about other people and just find someone you like. If there's no one in the capital, we'll go outside the capital. The entire Qi Yuan dynasty is so big, how can we not find a girl you like? Yilin. Mother, don't bother, I don't want to, Yilin, Duchess Ding interrupted him with a sharp voice. Are you not going to marry and have children for the rest of your life? If you do this, what will happen to your mother? I painstakingly carried you for 10 months and raised you into an adult. In the end, this is how you repay me. Who did you let down? Who did you let down? Mother, don't be agitated. I just don't want it for the time being. Give me a few years. Anyway, I'm not that old now. Maybe fate will come naturally when the time comes. Sun Yilin said somewhat weakly. Okay. I'll do as you say. She took the handkerchief from the servant and personally wiped his face. Mother, I'll do it myself. Sun Yijia silently retreated. Without comparison, there was no way to know. In her mother's heart, fifth brother was indeed the most important. Wasn't this the best time to reflect a person's true thoughts? Sun Yijia inexplicably felt a little cold. She hugged her arms and rubbed them. Her wet nurse saw her like this and her heart ached. Good girl, why don't, wet nurse, get someone to prepare the carriage? I want to go to the Luo family. Miss, isn't it inappropriate to go to the Luo family at this time? The wet nurse was slightly hesitant. Wet nurse, what are you thinking? It's just that as an older sister, I feel that my younger sister is a little unkind. Why didn't she tell me about such a joyous occasion? She should have told me and let me share in the joy. The wet nurse saw that her mood was still calm and she didn't seem to be questioning her. In addition, she seemed to be a little sad because of the madam's words and deeds again. It wasn't impossible for her to meet Miss Luo. Sun Yijia didn't know that not long after she left, Duke Dingguo returned to the manor with her other brothers. Although they didn't know the full text of the article written by Sun Yilin, they knew that it was very inappropriate. Duke Dingguo took his eldest son to see the situation of his youngest son and asked him what was going on. As the eldest brother, Sun Yibin seemed to be concerned about Sun Yilin, but in fact, he was criticizing him in all kinds of ways. He shouldn't have gone out when he was entangled with trouble, he shouldn't have written such an article and become a topic for ridicule, he shouldn't have gotten drunk and damaged the image of Duke Dingguo's mansion, and he shouldn't have troubled his mother to take care of him like this. Sun Yibin, that's enough. Duchess Dingguo interrupted her eldest son's words with an angry roar. Even Duke Dingguo was shocked by her. Duchess Dingguo looked at him coldly. Don't you see that your brother is suffering? Your father hasn't said anything yet. You scolded him as soon as you came in. How can you be an elder brother? Mother, it's not like that. Sun Yibin was slightly older than Prince Kong. He also had a dignified appearance, gentle and handsome, and looked like an elegant gentleman. At this time, he was as helpless as a child. You don't have to explain to me. Who doesn't know what you're thinking? You can't wait for your brother to die so that you'll be happy. Mother, why do you think so? I watched Yilin grow up. I naturally hope that he'll be well. Sun Yibin rubbed his forehead, showing a tired and sad expression that was always misunderstood by others. Don't pretend here. If you really have the slightest intention for your brother, get out of here immediately. Sun Yibin forced a smile. Mother, I know that compared with Yilin, you don't like me at all. Since Yilin was born, you have been partial to him. I didn't say anything. But do we have to quarrel like this because of Yilin? If this gets out, how many people will laugh at us? If you don't say it, how can this matter get out? These words were equivalent to saying, you're a villain. If this matter gets out, it must be you who did it. It made Sun Yibin's face turn ugly. Aren't you trying to make outsiders think that you're a filial son and a good elder brother? Yilin is suppressing you and blocking your way. You pretend to be indifferent and magnanimous, but in fact, you're trying your best to smear your brother's reputation. So what if I'm partial to him? You don't say anything. What do you have to say? Your father has always been partial to you. Did Yilin say a word? You got all the good things from your father. Do you still want to get all my care? You want to monopolize all the good things in the world. Aren't you being a little too ambitious? Sun Yibin's face was really as dark as the bottom of a pot. It was not fake at all. Madam, that's enough. Duke Ding, who had stood aside and watched, finally couldn't stand it anymore. Originally, he thought that if the mother and son talked openly, maybe they could ease the tension. After all, his wife had always been cold to his eldest son, and he was helpless. But in fact, the more they talked, the more outrageous it became, and the worse their relationship was. That's not enough. Since we've talked to this extent today, let's talk openly. Duchess Ding looked at Sun Yibin with cold eyes. You're my eldest son. Since you were born, I had great hopes for you. I tried my best to raise you. After your second brother was born, you were still young. I was worried that you would be instigated by others, so I was more devoted to you and neglected your second brother. When Yilin was born, you were already more than 10 years old. I thought that you should have the ability to distinguish right from wrong. I thought that I had let your second brother down, so I couldn't let your fifth brother down. So I took care of him more, but I never ignored you. Even so, you were still jealous of him and held a grudge against him. What's more, after he was enlightened, he showed far more intelligence than ordinary people, so you couldn't tolerate him and wanted him dead, mother. Sun Yibin's pupils contracted sharply, showing panic. He hurriedly concluded Duchess Ding's words. It seemed that he had a premonition that his next words might cause him great trouble. Duchess Ding sneered, when Yilin was 5 years old, on a cold winter day, mother. Sun Yibin even ignored his manners and reached out to cover Duchess Ding's mouth. At this time, not only did the silent Sun Yilin open his eyes, but Duchess Ding also looked sideways. Duchess Ding slapped him in the face, and Sun Yibin stepped back. You pushed your brother into the lotus pond with your own hands. Do you think I don't know? Sun Yilin widened his eyes in disbelief, and Duchess Ding was even more shocked beyond words. But seeing Sun Yibin clenched his fists and trembling all over, it meant that Duchess Ding was telling the truth. How could it be? How could it be? How black-hearted do you have to be able to kill your younger brother at such a young age? Ah! Do you know how heartbroken I was at that time? The son I worked so hard to raise was worse than a beast. It's because you're my son that I can't bear to see you taint yourself. Everyone else thinks that I'm crazy. I killed so many people because I didn't take good care of your younger brother's servants. I'm crazy. I'm crazy because of you. Yilin had a high fever and was unconscious. At that time, you looked very worried and went to see him whenever you had time. I thought you felt guilty. I thought you were just confused for a moment. I wanted to give you a chance, but what did you do? The second and third time you wanted to kill your brother. At that time, you were actually wondering why he was not dead, right? When you learned that your brother's brain might be damaged, do you think I didn't see how happy you were? After he recovered, do you think I didn't see how sorry you were? He forgot what happened before and after he fell into the water. Do you think I didn't know how lucky you were? You are such a black-hearted thing. Why should I like you and be partial to you? As for Yilin, if I didn't protect him and be partial to him, how could he live until now? Sun Yilin narrowed his eyes and looked at Sun Yibin sharply. He once thought that this elder brother of his was really good to him when they were young. It turned out that even this was fake. In fact, there was no affection between them except for that little bit of blood relationship. Brother, you are very good. Really, very good. No wonder after his serious illness, his mother told him not to follow his brother. When he asked why, his mother told him that it was because his brother had grown up and had a lot of things to do. He was very busy. He believed it, but in fact, his mother wanted to protect him and separate him from his brother. Even if the affection was real, it was almost worn away, let alone fake. Then he didn't need to hesitate anymore. Sun Yibin, who had been exposed, gradually recovered from his trembling. He didn't feel guilty, nor did he want to atone for his sins. There was only indifference in his eyes. Mother, since you have hidden it from me for so many years, why don't you continue to hide it? Sure enough, Sun Yilin is your favorite. Duchess Ding was not surprised by his reaction. Continue to hide it. I watched you use endless means to deal with Yilin, and he repeatedly gave in for the sake of affection. Even when he fought back, he didn't hit hard. Not only did you not stop, but you became more and more vicious. Until now, you still don't repent. You are really incurable. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I repent? The enemy should be completely eradicated. This is what father taught me. Duke Dingwa took 2 steps back with a pale face. He didn't believe that this was the son he had taught. He tore off the layer of hypocrisy and turned into a beast who didn't recognize his own family. However, he had been deceived by such a beast. Is your younger brother also your enemy? Of course, anyone who wants to compete with me is my enemy. Sun Yilin is no exception. Who caused him to come to this point? If you didn't harm him again and again, would he compete with you? He still competed with me, so I did the right thing from the beginning. A person like him won't have ambition until he is dead. Sun Yibin turned to look at Sun Yilin and suddenly smiled. Yilin, you can't be like this. You are as weak as a little girl. How can you compete with me? I'm waiting for you. Let's see how capable you are to make a comeback. Then he turned to look at Duchess Ding. Father, for so many years, you refused to ask for the title of heir apparent for me. Is it because you actually like Sun Yilin more in your heart? It's just that he is still young and you are worried about him, so you deliberately suppressed him for me to see and let me put down my guard. In fact, when the time is right, you will ask for the title of heir apparent for him, so that my efforts will be in vain and I will have nothing? Fortunately, I was prepared. If I did everything according to your instructions, wouldn't I be a puppet now? Father, you are not young anymore. It's time for you to enjoy your remaining years. Let me do the more glorious things of Duke Ding's mansion. Bastard! Duchess Ding's eyes were about to crack. His blood rushed up and his face flushed. He slapped him. Sun Yibin grabbed his hand and threw it away. Father, I hope to see the memorial to ask for the title of heir apparent for me tomorrow. I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave first. Otherwise, why would you only expose me today when you already know my true colors? It's been so many years. What I want is already in my hands. If you say it now, it won't affect me at all. On the contrary, I should be thanking you. You don't have to put on an act in front of father anymore. It's tiring to listen to his orders and be controlled by him. It's the most satisfying to be able to make your own decisions. When he came in, he still looked like a modest gentleman. When he went out, it was as if he had taken off the shackles on his body and became wanton and ostentatious. Sun Yibin's change was an unprecedented blow to Duchess Ding. Even if Sun Yilin disobeyed him, he would at most be angry. But now, he seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. What he lost was his essence, qi, and spirit. There were even signs of a stroke. Duchess Ding also lost her sharpness and coldness. With a stupefied expression, she took 2 steps back and sat on the edge of Sun Yilin's bed. After sitting for a while, she turned to look at Sun Yilin in a daze. Yilin, I'm sorry. It's mother's fault. If mother had said it earlier, maybe. This was also a blow to Duchess Ding. Sometimes, it was not easy to say what was hidden in one's heart. In fact, she was the one who suffered the most and suffered the most. When she learned that her eldest son was such a person, how could she not think of correcting him? But obviously, she failed in the end. That person, from the beginning to the end, didn't think that he was wrong. He just hinted that he would only be respectful on the surface. If she made it clear to him, maybe he would hide deeper and have more vicious thoughts. Compared with the two of them who were on the verge of collapse, Sun Yilin was almost unaffected except for being firm in his previous practice. He didn't even worry about whether Sun Yibin had secretly controlled Duke Ding's mansion and even the Sun family. When Sun Yibin was full of confidence and seemed to have the power in his hands, he inexplicably thought of Prince Jean Li Hongyuan. Sun Yibin's ability was not small, but Duke Ding was not a fool. It was possible to do a little trick under his nose, but this kind of thing like controlling the power of Duke Ding's mansion was simply a big joke. Sun Yibin had not been able to become the heir for a long time. He didn't even have the confidence to paint a cake to appease people's hunger. In addition, Sun Yilin grew more and more outstanding, and was even favored by the emperor. Even if Duke Ding had always supported his eldest son, it was useless if the emperor didn't agree. Why would those people support Sun Yibin? Sun Yibin's confidence was nothing more than forcing Duke Ding to confer him the title of heir, so that he could be justified. In addition to old Madame Sun, there were also the elders of the Sun family. They may not have official positions, but they used to be high-ranking officials and made contributions to the Sun family. These people had high seniority and were respected in the family. Even as the patriarch of the Sun family, Duke Ding couldn't ignore their opinions. Instead, when they preached, he had to listen respectfully. The glory of Duke Ding's mansion was indispensable to these people. Mother, you didn't let me down. No matter how wrong he is still your son after all. Can you push him to his death? I am fine now, so you don't have to feel guilty. Yilin, Yilin. Duchess Ding couldn't help crying again. Why did Yilin understand his painstaking efforts, but that bastard was still stubborn? Sun Yilin waited until Duchess Ding was almost done crying before he turned to Duke Ding, who had been in a state of despair. Father, since he wants to confer the title of heir apparent, you can write it to him when you go back. Duke Ding seemed to suddenly come to life. He almost jumped up and stared at Sun Yilin with his eyes wide open. Now you don't want to compete with him. Are you afraid of him and want to shrink back? Obviously, he was in line with the saying, when things reach an extreme, they will go in the opposite direction. He had been cheated so miserably and hated being robbed of his power for no reason. He hated Sun Yibin as much as he used to care about him. Naturally, he hoped that Sun Yilin could fight back strongly and hit Sun Yibin's arrogance hard. Yilin, you don't have to be afraid. You still have me. I will confer the title of heir for you and give Duke Ding's mansion to you. Sun Yilin smiled sarcastically. I didn't confer the title of heir for him. It's not me who oppresses him, but His Majesty. He said firmly, even if you give the letter to him now, I'd like to see how capable he is to change His Majesty's mind. Father, you have planned for him wholeheartedly in vain, but in the end, you are suspected by him. Sun Yilin sprinkled salt on Duke Ding's wound again, making him tremble all over. Sun Yilin didn't say anything more. The room fell into silence once again. After a long while, Duke Ding spoke again. Yilin, what are you going to do? Forgive me for not telling you, Father, Sun Yilin said coldly. It was really uncomfortable to be distrusted by his son, but he couldn't get angry with his son. Yilin, you have to be careful. Your eldest brother has grown powerful and is now crazy. I'm afraid that he will kill you without scruples. His Majesty and the Empress are there. Since he already has great power, he won't be stupid enough to go to extremes. Now he wants to see me become a stray dog wagging its tail and begging for mercy. Give him the letter, and then, as he said, take good care of yourself. Leave the rest to me. There are many people who want to fight with Duke Ding's mansion, not one person's word. I won't be alone and helpless. Besides, there was Li Hongyuan, such a dangerous person. lurking in the dark. He wasn't sure if Sun Yibin had come to this point because of him. He didn't even know if the Sun family had been broken up by him. If so, no matter what he did now, it would be in vain. It felt like Li Hongyuan had already opened a big net, and everyone was the fish in his net. They seemed to be jumping happily, but who knew if they were not dying in another sense? What was more terrible was that these fish didn't feel anything. As the only fish who knew the truth, he couldn't tell others. On the other side, Sun Yijia arrived at the Luo family. After hearing the news, Jingwan waited for her at the second gate with a smile. Sun Yijia looked at Jingwan, who looked the same as before, and didn't know what to say. Those in power knew about what happened outside, but it hadn't spread to the inner residence. Therefore, Jingwan didn't know. However, she guessed that Sister Jia should know about her engagement. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to the Luo family. She took Sun Yijia's arm. "Sister Jia, let's go in and talk." In the begonia house, the maids had already prepared tea and snacks. In her own territory, there was no need to be reserved. Jingwan asked Sun Yijia to take off her veil. Sun Yijia didn't wear a veil to hide her embarrassment, nor did she care about other people's gazes. She just didn't want to be startled by others. She was really annoyed, so she naturally didn't have any scruples here. Jingwan looked at her wound. It was recovering well. When it fully healed in the future, it would probably protrude a little. Then, it might be whiter than normal skin. If she covered it with foundation, or applied a special, twining makeup around the wound, it might make her look stunning. It might even make her look popular. When she saw how careful Jingwan was with her wound, she suddenly felt that Sister Wan might have a ruthless and resolute side. "Sister Wan, you deliberately hid it from me, right? It's not like I didn't write to you these few days. Even if you vaguely said something in your reply, I wouldn't have found out about your engagement from other people." Jingwan smiled calmly. "You don't have to wait on me. You can all leave. I want to have a private talk with Sister Jia." Even Sun Yijia's servants bowed respectfully and then retreated in an orderly manner. "Since I know Sister Jia's thoughts, I naturally have to prevent Sister Jia from causing trouble, right?" Jingwan smiled a little mischievously. "Then you also know my fifth brother's thoughts, right?" Sun Yijia didn't buy it and continued to pursue. "That Sister Jia really isn't likable at all." Sun Yijia was a little helpless in front of Jingwan like this, but she still decided to tell the truth. If she beat around the bush at this time, it would really hurt their relationship. "Sister Wan, since you know, why don't you choose my fifth brother? Could it be that he can't compare to your current fiancé? He's preparing to propose marriage to you, but you gave him a head-on blow. Don't use your parents' words to fool me. I can see that Madame Luo dotes on you. If you don't want to, she won't force you." Jingwan's smile faded. "Before your fifth brother came to find me today, I didn't know that he had feelings for me. But even if I knew, I wouldn't choose him. It's not that he's not good, it's that Ding General Manor isn't good. You grew up in Ding General Manor, so you should know how messy the situation is. But you're different from me. Once you marry into Ding General Manor, my fifth brother will protect you wholeheartedly and won't let anyone hurt you. Sister Jia, you have to remember that the inner residence is a woman's world. Even if it's like what you said, he can't stay by my side all the time, right? If he cares about me, I will become his weakness, and the people who compete with him will naturally want to harm me. I can't disturb his mind, but they will also think of ways to threaten him. If it is really just a conspiracy, I may be able to fight back, but there is also a situation called one strong person can defeat 10 skilled people. If they take advantage of the loophole and use the simplest and most violent method to deal with me, in that place, I will definitely not be able to call for help." Sun Yijia bit her lip. "Sister Wan, are you thinking too much? Our home is not a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. Because the son is too good to the daughter-in-law, the mother wants to get rid of the daughter-in-law. This kind of thing is not unheard of. Sun Yijia understood what she meant. With her mother's care for her fifth brother, it was really possible that she would do such a thing. Even if it seemed that she compromised now and married Sister Wan, in the future, as time passed, the more she looked at her, the more unpleasant she would be to the eye. Then. Sun Yijia smiled a little weakly. Which inner residence doesn't have troublesome things? Sister Wan, are you sure that if you marry into another family, your life will be smooth sailing? At least it won't be worse than Ding General Manor. In fact, I'm very tired of fighting. The reason why I can live freely in the inner courtyard of the Luo family is not because I'm very capable, but because the person with the highest power in the manor loves and protects me. If I'm constantly trapped in the inner courtyards fighting, I'll probably be driven crazy. Didn't you say that if you really have someone in your heart, you're willing to change for him, endure for him, and do anything for him? Jingwan glanced at Sun Yijia strangely. But I don't admire your fifth brother, so why should I keep him in my heart? Moreover, marriage is not only a matter between two people, but also a matter between two different surnames. Right now, the battle for the position of the heir is white hot. It's very unexpected that the Luo family is neutral. How can I drag them into this quagmire? The most annoying thing was that she didn't have any thoughts about her fifth brother. Sun Yijia felt depressed. Jingwan reached out and poked her face. What, are you angry with me? Sun Yijia glared at her angrily. I thought that Sister Wan was the most gentle and considerate person, but in fact, you're the most cold-hearted and frighteningly rational. I really want to see what you'll do if you fall in love with a man one day. Then I don't know. Maybe anything can happen, or maybe nothing will happen. We'll only know when the time comes. All right. Just looking at your indifferent face makes me angry. I don't care about this anymore. My fifth brother is a grown man. He won't make a fuss about it. Jingwan laughed again. Her laughter made Sun Yijia's anger soar to the sky, but in the blink of an eye, it was as if a basin of water had been poured over her. It's windy. It's better for you to stay away from your wound for the time being. Come in and sit down. After entering the room, Sun Yijia saw the paintings on the table. Wow, what kind of painting technique is this? It's so realistic and looks especially beautiful. It's a painting technique created by my older brother. It's gradually taking shape recently. I'm also learning it. He sent these paintings over and asked me to help him think about it and see if I can improve it further. Jingwan lied without blushing or skipping a beat. Sun Yijia recalled the hurried scene outside Begonia Elegant Residence and the humorous and refreshing scene on the way to White Dragon Temple. Her eyes flashed. I didn't expect that your older brother, who looks like a free and easy person, is actually a meticulous and emotional person. Jingwan was speechless. Perhaps he was a meticulous and emotional person. As for this meticulous mind, forget it. Sun Yijia flipped through the paintings one by one. Because Jingwan's previous paintings were mostly flowers and trees, when Luo Jingbo started, he also started from this aspect. However, after he had more or less mastered the technique, he would also add animals, mountains, and other objects into the painting. Although it was few, but the finished product of each painting was very good. The more Sun Yijia looked at it, the more she liked it. Unfortunately, I don't have much time. After marriage, it's even more impossible. Otherwise, I would also learn properly. Jingwan's eyes flashed. If Jin Qinhuang's words were true, Jia Jijie, you would probably become an old disaster that would not be able to get married. Jingwan saw that Sun Yijia was holding her older brother's painting and was reluctant to part with it. Suddenly, an idea popped up in her mind. She had always wanted her to be her sister-in-law. Why couldn't she abduct her back to be her sister-in-law? Even if Sun Yijia's face was damaged, in Jingwan's eyes, she was still a good girl that was hard to come by. Just because her face was disfigured, she was looked down upon and trampled into the mud. How unfair was that? Could it be that she couldn't compare to a straw-bag beauty? Moreover, her older brother, no matter what, really didn't care much about a person's beauty or ugliness. She had heard before that her older brother didn't have many requirements for his wife. Her temperament was better and she wasn't that kind of troublemaker. As long as it wasn't a big and coarse person that was unbearably ugly, he could basically accept it. To put it nicely, he was open-minded. To put it bluntly, he was insensitive. If it was before Jia Jijia's face was disfigured, she wouldn't have thought of this. If Jin Qinhuang broke off the engagement, she was afraid that the marriage would be even more difficult. No one would be willing or even dare to marry her. And if she participated in the marriage disruption, if her older brother married her as his wife, Jin Qinhuang probably wouldn't do anything. Then it would be a lot easier. The interest of these two families would also be a lot weaker because Sun Yijia didn't have any value. Although it might be a bit unkind to think this way and even suspected of taking advantage of someone's perilous state, it was also the truth. Thinking about it carefully, their family was actually quite suitable for Jia Jijia. No matter what, her father didn't care about anything and her mother was a young girl's heart, who was easily swayed. In their branch, Yin-Yang could be considered to be well-behaved. Jia Jijia's temperament wasn't bad. She grew up in Dingguo Gongfu and was trained according to the standards of a Qin Wang Fei. Her skills definitely weren't bad and she was more than enough to protect her mother in the Luo family's inner courtyard. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that there wasn't a better candidate than her. However, even so, it was still very difficult for her to handle this matter. Moreover, she had to wait until Jin Qinhuang settled the marriage. Before that, she couldn't even mention it to her grandmother. Of course, the most important thing was to know Jia Jijia's wishes. Just as she was thinking, a servant girl came in to report, "Miss, third young master is looking for you." "What is he doing here at this time? Doesn't he know that I have guests here?" Jingwan glanced at Sun Yijia and saw that she was startled. "Is it that brother of yours? Hurry and go take a look, maybe there's something urgent." Without waiting for Jingwan to speak, Sun Yijia reached out to push her. It seemed that she was more anxious than her own younger sister. Jingwan was slightly confused. It couldn't be that when she had the idea of matchmaking the two of them, this one really had the idea. "Okay, I'll go take a look. I'll be back soon. Don't worry, it doesn't matter if I wait." Jingwan really wanted to roll her eyes. After going out, Luo Jingbo held a large roll of paper in both hands. "Third brother, what is this for?" "Hurry, hurry, hurry, let me borrow the study." Luo Jingbo didn't dare to ignore Jingwan's study. Jingwan was also puzzled by his impatience and hurriedly followed him. Jingwan's study was spacious and specially arranged to be a place for painting. A piece of paper that was a zhang long could be spread out completely after casually tidying it up. "Little sister, hurry and help me take a look, I keep feeling that something is wrong." Before Jingwan walked in, she saw a half-completed painting of birds looking up to a phoenix. The layout was just right, and the whole thing was majestic. Every bird in the details was vivid and lifelike, and the main body of the phoenix could be said to be vivid, not to mention the dreamlike beauty of the background. This was just a simple color. Jingwan didn't expect that Luo Jingbo could have such achievements in fine brushwork in such a short time. "Little sister, I've adjusted the color of the phoenix several times, but I still feel that something is wrong. Let me take a look." Jingwan stepped forward. Luo Jingbo used a light yellow as the base color of the phoenix. This was to turn the phoenix into a golden color. This color was more difficult to control. If it was too light or too thick, it would look dull, and if it was too bright, it would feel gaudy. It was not suitable for the solemn atmosphere of the King of Birds. Jingwan thought for a while and stood in front of the shelf where she displayed her paints. After a moment of silence, she took out a few colors and began to mix them. He had forgotten that there was still a guest in the courtyard. Sun Yijia didn't mind waiting for a while, but if she waited for too long, would little sister Wan really not treat her as an outsider? After asking where Jingwan was and knowing that the Luo family's third young master was still there and that they were painting, Sun Yijia still walked into the study after hesitating for a while. However, when she saw the painting of the person who had his head lowered and was painting seriously, Sun Yijia's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. It seemed that in order not to disturb him, Sun Yijia couldn't help but slow down her breathing as she walked closer. After Luo Jingbei finished coloring the tail feathers, he vaguely felt that there was someone in front of him and thought that it was Jingwan. "Little sister, what do you think?" Then he raised his head and met Sun Yijia's eyes. Luo Jingbei was startled and then said apologetically, "Hello, Miss Sunday. I'm sorry, I forgot that you were still here. Please forgive me." Sun Yijia instinctively covered her face. Her face was a little red as she said softly, "No. Miss Sun, the wound on your face hasn't healed yet, right? Don't use so much force, or else it'll hurt." His words were very natural and pure. There was no shock, sympathy, or disgust in his voice. Jingwan raised her head and looked at the two of them. "Say, is it really okay for a man like you to casually speak about the wound on a girl's face?" However, looking at Sister Jia's expression, it didn't seem like he had poked her wound, but her heart instead. Sun Yijia didn't put her hand down. "Young Master Luo, don't you think it's ugly?" Now, for some reason, she cared about her face more than ever. There was even a trace of regret that she didn't notice. "There's nothing ugly about it. The damage has already been done. It doesn't matter if it's ugly." Seeing Sun Yijia's red eyes and tears gathering in her eyes, Jingwan used to think that there was nothing wrong with her brother being insensitive. Now, she wanted to beat him up. He was simply a blockhead. "Bastard, how could you say that?" Luo Jingbei lowered his head and looked at his painting. He didn't see Sun Yijia's expression. "However, you girls might care a lot about this kind of thing. Actually, I don't think it's necessary. No matter how beautiful a person is, if she has a heart of snakes and scorpions, no one will like her. On the contrary, even if her appearance is damaged, as long as she has a good heart, even if others can't accept her for a while, they will genuinely like her after a long time." "Really?" Sun Yijia asked in surprise. "Fine, it was a lucky hit." She worried for nothing. "Yes." Luo Jingbei answered very casually, but he didn't know that he might have stirred up a pool of spring water. "Little sister, go accompany Miss Sunday. I'll think about it myself." "It's okay. You guys go ahead. I'll just watch. It's actually quite enjoyable to watch you guys draw." Sun Yijia hurriedly waved her hand. Luo Jingbei was one of them. "Since you're happy, you can do whatever you want." It wasn't like a man and a woman were alone in a room. He didn't want to deliberately avoid arousing suspicion. He always felt that it was unnecessary. When it was necessary to avoid arousing suspicion, he should avoid it. But since they had already met, it was naturally fine. He thought that his actions were righteous and upright. There was no need to be so harsh. Chapter 97. Sun Yijia could also tell that the third son of the Luo family was very good at painting, but he was lacking in color mixing. However, after seeing how Jingwan mixed colors, she realized that it wasn't that the third son of the Luo family couldn't mix colors, but that Jingwan was just as good at it as she was at growing flowers, making cosmetics, and making vases. She was simply too good at it. The third son of the Luo family was actually at the same level as most people who were good at painting, but when compared to Jingwan, he seemed to be a little lacking. However, the painting method that the third son of the Luo family created had a higher requirement for colors than freehand brushwork. If the colors weren't mixed well, it could ruin a good painting. Sun Yijia moved to Jingwan's side and said, "Jingwan, you can mix 10 to 20 different colors with just one color, and it seems like you can even subdivide it further. Isn't that too amazing? How did you do it? Do you have any techniques?" Not many people can learn this little sister's skill. Even if they know how to mix colors, they can't achieve the same effect as her. Luo Jingbue didn't mind that he was inferior to his little sister in this aspect. "You're painting. If you don't speak, no one will think that you're mute." Jingwan looked up and glared at him. Then, Luo Jingbue obediently shut up and lowered his head to continue painting. Ever since he took advantage of his little sister, Luo Jingbue felt that he had lost his status and confidence. His grandfather warned him every day, and his father also exhorted him from time to time. As the little sister, she climbed over her brother's head and acted like a tyrant. Sigh, people's hearts really weren't what they used to be. He could be seen shaking his head as he painted while muttering to himself. Sun Yijia covered her mouth and laughed. Jingwan wanted to knock him on the head. When there were other girls around, would it kill him to be serious? He usually looked like a very smart person, but why did he drop the ball at such a crucial time? Didn't he know that it would ruin his image if he played tricks at such a time? Also, don't think that I don't know that you're talking bad about me just because I can't hear you. Sun Yijia saw Jingwan's dark face and obediently covered her mouth to show that she wasn't laughing. Jingwan glared at her again. "Hide the smile that was about to overflow from your eyes, and it would look more like it." Sun Yijia was afraid that Jingwan would really fly into a rage out of humiliation, so she quickly changed the topic back to color mixing. Jingwan naturally wouldn't really get angry. "Luo Jingbue, it's really..." Sun Yijia was silent for a while. "Luo's right. Luo's right." Sun Yijia was silent for a moment. "It seems that third young master Luo is right. You really can't learn this skill. I'm afraid that you have to spend a long time to ponder over it and try it out yourself. Moreover, you have used so many different raw materials, just like this." Sun Yijia picked up a piece of hard block that was like a stone but stuck together piece by piece. The same color block has different colors. That is to say, every time you mix the colors, you may need to change the materials. You can't do it step by step, you really need to be flexible. Actually, if you know some conventional primary color combinations, what color is mixed with what color is what color. Over time, you'll be able to figure out some skills that belong to you. Jingwan then mixed the colors while telling Sun Yijia how to mix them. Once there was something to do, time seemed to pass very quickly. Looking at Phoenix's overall color, Luo Jingbue felt that it would not be good for him to stay for too long. Even if he and Sun Yijia did not mind, they would not be able to shut the mouths of the people outside. The words of the masses could melt gold, and the accumulation of words could destroy the bones. Under Mama Gong's reminder, Luo Jingbue could only put down the brush regretfully. "Little sister, I'll leave this painting with you. I'll come back to finish it when I have time. But it seems that I'll need you to help me mix the colors. Just this once. Don't do it again. Go back and figure out how to mix the colors yourself. You can't always need my help when you paint in the future." "Yes, yes, yes." Luo Jingbue hurriedly agreed. He even clasped his hands in front of Jingwan to thank his little sister for her selfless help. Sun Yijia faintly looked at Luo Jingbua. Her eyes kept flashing. Then, she looked at Jingwan and calmed down. Why don't I go back first? After all, I don't have anything serious to do. Don't worry. My third older brother is like this. He gets anxious easily when he doesn't solve a problem. Once it's solved, he doesn't have to worry about anything. Don't be fooled by how enthusiastic he was just now. Right now, he can just leave this painting here and not care about it for half a month. Jingwan was definitely a member of the vanguard when it came to exposing her brother's shortcomings. Although Luo Jingbua was a little embarrassed, he didn't get angry. The truth was just as his little sister said. Then I'll go first. After bowing properly, he left in a carefree manner. He didn't look back at all. Little sister Wan, has your brother always been like this? Yes, he's always been heartless. How can you say that about your brother? Sun Yijia reached out and gently pinched her waist. Jingwan shrank back. It didn't hurt, but it was a little ticklish. Ah, what are you doing? He's my own brother. I didn't even say anything, but you're already protecting him. Sun Yijia didn't know if it was because she was angry, embarrassed, or guilty, but her face turned red. You really dare to say anything with that mouth of yours? She made a move to pinch her mouth again. Jingwan hurriedly dodged. The two of them laughed and played together again. When their young miss was happy, the servants were naturally happy as well. After the two of them left, Nurse Gong left two servant girls behind to help tidy up the study. Before the meticulous brushwork technique was spread out, every painting here, even if it was just a scrap, was very important and couldn't be lost. Sun Yijia stayed at Jingwan's place until late in the evening. She had no choice but to leave. Jingwan told her to bring the rouge and powder that she had prepared for her. Little sister Wan, I'm afraid I won't have a chance to come here in the future. Sun Yijia had a deep sense of loneliness. How good would it be if I could always be so carefree? It's just that, to me, this way of thinking is too extravagant. Big sister Jia, don't be like this. Perhaps things won't be that bad. Perhaps there will be a turn for the better. That's right. No matter how bad things are, I have to walk on with my head held high. With such an open-minded and tenacious little sister like you, if I, as your older sister, am too weak, wouldn't I be embarrassing you? Sun Yijia put away her loneliness and smiled. Don't worry. I definitely won't be half dead like I was when I met you. Big sister Jia, believe me. It will definitely get better. Little sister Wan, sometimes your words make people feel that they will come true. Jingwan smiled noncommittally. Sun Yijia returned to Duke Ding's mansion somewhat absent-mindedly. Unexpectedly, Duchess Ding and Sun Yilin were waiting for her in her courtyard. Moreover, looking at her fifth brother, it seemed that he had not completely sobered up. What had happened this time? Little sister, do you already know? Sun Yilin saw that she was not in a good mood and there was a hint of sadness between her brows. Before she could greet him, he spoke first. Mother, fifth brother, what do I know? Did something happen? Sun Yijia was puzzled. Duchess Ding got up and stepped forward. She hugged Sun Yijia and began to cry again. My poor daughter, Sun Yijia was stupefied. Her mother had never been a weak person. In the past 10 years, she had never seen her cry. However, during this period of time, her tears seemed to be free. That's right. A woman's world was only in the inner courtyard. Once it involved the outside world and the imperial court, no matter how strong a woman in the inner courtyard was, she would be helpless. Mother, don't cry. Tell me, what bad thing happened? It was Sun Yilin who gave her the answer directly. His Majesty issued a decree to marry Ruan Fangfei, the youngest daughter of the Grand Secretary, to Jin Qin Wang as its Fei. Sun Yijia flatly said, "Oh," indicating that she understood. There was no more reaction. In Duchess Ding's view, Sun Yijia was a typical example of completely disheartened. She didn't care about anything anymore. Yijia, don't be like this. What should I do if you call your mother like this?" Sun Yilin knew that his sister had not reached that step, but he was not clear about what she was thinking. "Mother, don't cry. Little sister, Wan Fangfei is different from others. Her talent and beauty are first class. She entered Jin Qin Wang Fu. Fifth brother, so what? Without her, can I establish myself in Jin Qin Wang Fu? Therefore, whether it is her or someone else, the nature is the same. Moreover, His Majesty has already issued a decree, so there is no room to reverse it. Do what you should do. There is no need to worry about these things that are already destined." Sun Yijia waved her hand carelessly. Since she said so, Sun Yilin couldn't say anything. However, things that are destined might not necessarily be. Jin Qin Wang was always an uncertain factor. Although he said that he didn't want to marry his sister, don't want to marry, and don't marry were two different things. Who knew what he would do in the end? People who never acted according to common sense were the most troublesome. "Mother, you go ahead. I have a few words to say to little sister." Sun Yilin opened his mouth and sent Duchess Ding away. With the brother and sister together, Duchess Ding naturally had nothing to worry about. After exhorting a few words, she left. "What does fifth brother want to say to me?" Sun Yijia sat down and poured a glass of water for herself. "In fact, I just want to ask, did little sister encounter something in the Luo family, or did you quarrel with Miss Luo because of me? If that's the case, little sister, you may be a bit reckless. Miss Luo did not do anything wrong in this matter. I don't want you to lose this rare confidant because of me." Sun Yijia held the cup and was lost in thought. Sun Yilin called her twice before she came back to her senses. With her like this, if she said that there was nothing wrong, no one would believe it. Sun Yilin's eyes showed concern. "Fifth brother, there's nothing wrong. Wan Mimi and I are very good." "Then, why are you in low spirits and seem to have a lot on your mind?" Sun Yijia was silent. "Is there anything else that you can't say to fifth brother?" Sun Yijia suddenly couldn't help but shed tears. This time, Sun Yilin was really shocked. She cried when she complained about their mother after she was injured. After that, even when she was bestowed a marriage, even when she returned to the Fu, she didn't shed a single tear in the face of many people's ridicule. "Little sister, don't cry. What happened? Tell fifth brother will help you find a way." Sun Yijia wiped away her tears. "On the eve of my wedding, I suddenly realized that I might have fallen in love with a man, but that person isn't the one I'm going to marry." Sun Yilin was stunned. He didn't think that it would be like this. He had always thought that his little sister had a cold personality and high standards, so she didn't take a fancy to any of the outstanding young masters in the capital. It should be known that other girls had their first awakening of love at the age of 12 or 13, or even earlier, but she didn't blush when she saw Prince Kang, even though she knew that she had secretly reached an agreement to be Prince Kang's consort. Who? The third young master of the Luo family, Wan Mimi's older brother. It was another unexpected answer. After the trip to White Dragon Temple, Sun Yilin was naturally no stranger to Luo Jingbua. He was indeed a person with a completely different temperament from them. Perhaps there was a reason why his little sister fell in love with him. It turned out that she never had high standards. Instead, she yearned for a simple and ordinary life. She admired people who were simple but had a good temperament. "Little sister, don't be anxious. Your marriage might take a turn for the better. Wait, wait. Fifth brother, you don't blame me. Why should I blame you? It's already impossible between me and Luo Gunyang. Don't tell me that you're not allowed to admire the Luo family's men. Other than Luo Shangshu, the other members of the Luo family might not have much achievements. But in terms of family style, the Luo family was something that many large families couldn't reach. Before, he didn't pay attention and didn't know. But after paying attention, he found out that in the entire capital, there were actually very few middle and lower level officials who were willing to marry their daughters into the Luo family. And Luo Jingbua just happened to be the most popular one. So many people have taken a fancy to him. It shows that he's really not bad. It's understandable that little sister would take a fancy to him. Sun Yijia was somewhat bashful, but with some hope. Fifth brother, you said that there might be a turn for the better. How likely is it? Sun Yilin looked at her appearance. Even if she didn't care very much, that Luo Jingbua should have made her more or less interested. Apologies, little sister, I didn't know. He never thought that there would be a day where he would place all his hopes on Jin Qin Wang. Wan Mimi also said that there might be a turn for the better. Maybe I should believe you guys. Because of this little bit of expectation, Sun Yijia's heartbeat sped up. Sun Yilin's thoughts turned. You saw Luo Sangongzi today. Sun Yijia nodded. He was looking for Wan Mimi today. We just happened to bump into each other. It was hard to say the specifics. After all, it was a painting method that hadn't been circulated yet. Just based on that unfinished painting, one could faintly foresee the sensation it would bring when it was unveiled. Did Luo Gunyang see through your thoughts? I don't know. I felt that I had restrained myself as much as possible. But you know, Wan Mimi is meticulous and clever. It's inevitable that she would see some clues. Fifth brother, say, if she knew, would she be unhappy? I'm a disfigured girl who still has an engagement and is even about to get married. Yet, I shamelessly took a fancy to her older brother. Sun Yijia wanted to cry again as she spoke. Therefore, it was easy for people to be fragile when it came to matters of the heart. It was either sad or happy, worrying about gains and losses. She won't. You still don't know what kind of person she is. That's right, Wan Mimi is so good, but I, Xiaomei, go to grandmother's place. She sent someone to find you before. Sun Yilin didn't want to see her like this. His heart was tired and he was easily affected by her emotions. I know. Not long after Sun Yijia left, Jingwan also found out about everything that happened today from Gong Momo. Sun Yilin got drunk at Untitled Pavilion and acted wildly. Regarding this, Jingwan was silent. The result of the emperor's handling of the love triangle. Sure enough, Jin Qinhuang was Luqingdi's treasure. Luqingdi issued an edict to bestow Wan Fangfei to Jin Qinhuang as its Sifei. Our emperor dislikes the Grand Secretary Darren for being too loyal to him, so he wants to push him out. Jingwan was speechless for a long time before she opened her mouth. In fact, she wanted to say, did water enter Luqingdi's brain or did he have a stroke? Gong Momo knew that this matter was most likely related to the imperial Gui Fei Nyang and Jin Qinhuang, but she didn't know the specifics. At that time, she was actually just a small palace maid without any power or influence. She was only around 10 years old and offended someone not long after entering the palace. Because she knew some martial arts and didn't know the dangers of the palace, she acted ruthlessly in anger. As a result, she suffered from retaliation. If it wasn't for the imperial Gui Fei Nyang saving her, she would have died in a dry well. However, she didn't know if there was a problem at the imperial Gui Fei's side at that time. She didn't stay by her Nyang side. Instead, she had an aunt secretly teach her martial arts, teach her all kinds of rules and etiquette, as well as medicine, nourishing the body, and so on. She didn't know if it was because she was worried that there wouldn't be enough time and couldn't teach her everything, so she had her memorize some books. It didn't matter if she wasn't literate. Her aunt would read a sentence and she would read it, letting her memorize it in the future. Fortunately, she had a good memory and put in 120% of her effort to learn. The last time she saw the Imperial Gui Fei Nyang, she had a big belly and smiled especially gently. She patted her head as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she only said, "I hope these things can help you live well in the palace." Then, the next day, the bad news of the Imperial Gui Fei Nyang's death came. It was also because everything was done in secret that she wasn't purged after the Imperial Gui Fei Nyang's death. The Imperial Gui Fei Nyang might have exhausted her mental and physical strength to protect her. After all, Luqingdi couldn't wait to tie her to his waist at all times. Nanny Gong didn't know how the Imperial Gui Fei died, but she knew it was definitely not a postpartum hemorrhage. Nanny Gong gritted her teeth. She didn't want to find out the truth on impulse and avenge the Imperial Gui Fei because she knew very well that she was alone and couldn't do anything. She would die in vain. She wasn't afraid of death, but she thought that she hadn't repaid the Imperial Gui Fei for saving her life. At that time, she vaguely understood that the Imperial Gui Fei might want her to leave someone for her child. So, she lay dormant in the palace. Although she couldn't find out the mystery of the Imperial Gui Fei's death, she knew a lot of dirty things in the harem. Originally, she just wanted to watch the sixth prince in secret. After all, Imperial Gui Fei was really good to him. Until one day, the sixth prince suddenly came to her after he was 10 years old. He showed his extraordinary wisdom and frightening means. Only then did she know how terrifying this little master, who looked just a little smarter and more mischievous than other princes, was. However, Nanny Gong wasn't afraid. On the contrary, she was very excited because she had a chance to avenge the Imperial Gui Fei. Then, Nanny Gong fell into an abyss of suffering that was countless times more painful than before. Fortunately, she could basically read. Even if the little master threw one book after another at her, she could grit her teeth and finish reading it in the allotted time. Then, she turned it into her own things. Her martial arts didn't deteriorate during these years. This kind of life lasted for 6 years. The little master grew from a 10-year-old boy to a 16-year-old boy. From an androgynous boy, he was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off him. Then, he gradually showed the heroic bearing of a man. He was conferred the title of king and opened his residence. He only used a small trick to make these people follow him out of the palace. After another 4 years, he transformed into a real man. He was handsome, and the most handsome man in the capital. However, his temperament and some of his actions were really hard to agree with. From a little devil to a devil incarnate and then gradually to a living king of hell, his temperament became more and more unpredictable. He was cold and ruthless. His only gentleness was given to a little girl who was thousands of miles away. It was hard to understand why he would care about a little girl who he had never seen before. However, he himself was a mystery, so there was no need to investigate too much. Her second master asked her to change her identity when he was 20 years old to serve his third master. She changed from a secret guard to a nanny. However, this didn't matter to her. However, she couldn't tell the girl about these things. As for whether the living king of hell would explain it to the girl in the future, it was up to him. She was just a servant and had no right to interfere. When Li Hongyuan received the imperial edict, his face didn't look very good. Although in his plan, he was prepared to make Wan Fangfei his quasi-concubine. The change was consistent with his plan, but it was not the result of his control. It was inevitable that he was unhappy. However, his father's decision was not absolutely unexpected. Those who didn't know the truth were wondering if Luqingdi had any deep meaning in doing so. As for those who knew the truth, he had no deep meaning. Wasn't it because he gave his son a disfigured princess and felt that the best compensation was to give him a beautiful and perfect woman? In the whole capital, among the unmarried girls, Wan Ruizhong's youngest legitimate daughter was the most suitable. Therefore, he made the imperial edict without saying anything or asking for anyone's opinion. If he was in his normal state, how could he make such an imperial edict? Didn't he see the things prepared to compensate Li Hongyuan a few days ago? Even if they were priceless, they were still inanimate objects. He had never mentioned a beautiful woman. After these 2 days, he was afraid that he would beat his chest and stamp his feet in regret. As the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet, Wan Ruizhong belonged to the neutral faction, but he was also loyal to the emperor. His loyalty was always to the emperor. Now, Emperor Luqingdi gave his beloved daughter to a bastard prince and a concubine. To put it bluntly, she was just a concubine. Emperor Luqingdi, how dissatisfied were you with him to do such a thing? Those few who knew the truth were imagining how guilty Luqingdi would be when Elder Wan questioned Luqingdi in 2 days. Elder Wan was his real right-hand man and a trusted minister. He was not like Duke Ding, who would be killed if he could be killed. Luqingdi might even hope that his bastard son would do it again so that he could pretend to be helpless, lose his dignity, and withdraw the imperial edict. However, in the eyes of the world, Li's chances of becoming an emperor were very slim. Li Hongyuan was originally a man who loved beauties. He did not make a move on those noble ladies because he still had some misgivings in his heart. Now that he could legitimately have such a great beauty with a noble status and outstanding talent, he would be a fool to give up. Yes, Li Hongyuan also asked himself how stupid he was to give up so many beauties and wholeheartedly hang himself on a crooked tree called Luo Jingwan. But there was no other way. He was too deeply poisoned. Only Luo Jingwan was the antidote. The imperial edict had been thrown to a corner by Li Hongyuan to collect dust. Looking at the message from Luo Manor, Li Hongyuan also wanted to know how Wan Wan would react when she admired a man. No, she admired him. She was rational and tenacious. Except for the people closest to her, it was difficult for her to be moved by outsiders. In the previous life, even if she made such a big sacrifice for her husband's family, he wasn't sure whether she liked her husband because he couldn't see the slightest bit from her words and deeds. Was it because of her principles or because of some inexplicable persistence? He hoped that she wasn't moved. Although it might be difficult for him to move her heart, he was ready to keep grinding. As for whether she was moved or not, he wouldn't be able to find out the answer. There was no need to continue struggling. Others might not be able to see it, but who was Nurse Gong? She had already faintly sensed her young Mrs. plan. It was even easier to see Sun Yijia's emotions. I originally wanted her to be your sister-in-law. After her face was disfigured, I wanted to find a better one for your older brother. But you've already made your own plans. Li Hongyuan flicked the letter with a doting and helpless smile. This prince will naturally achieve what you want. Remember to properly compensate this prince in the future. However, you want this prince to break off the engagement with Sun Yijia, but you want her to be your sister-in-law. Do you think that this prince is inferior to your older brother? This prince will remember this debt. We'll slowly settle it in the future. As for Sun Yijia's wishes, what was that? Since the prospective secondary consort was already in place, then the prospective Wang Fei could naturally be dealt with ahead of time. Reading to the end, he knew that Luo Jingbo's famous painting was about to be born. However, he didn't expect that this painting also had a huge contribution from Wan Wan. His brother-in-law had taken advantage of his wife again. In the future, if he didn't capture him and make him a slave, he, Li Hongyuan, would write his name backwards. Master, the things that Imperial Consort Nyang sent people to deliver have already been packed. Look, that table of food, it's your reward. Li Hongyuan expressionlessly waved his hand. Yes. Today was the death anniversary of the imperial consort, so naturally, it was also Li Hongyuan's birthday. However, from his birth until now, he had never celebrated his birthday because it would anger Lu Qingdi. When Li Hongyuan was young, he didn't know anything. He watched other people celebrate their birthdays happily, received gifts, and also made a fuss about celebrating his birthday. He was beaten by Lu Qingdi more than once. Later, he learned to remain silent on this day every year. Even when Lu Qingdi wanted to celebrate his birthday, he refused. Thus, over time, everyone thought that he didn't want to celebrate his birthday because of his biological mother. Gradually, except for a few people, almost everyone, including Lu Qingdi, forgot his birthday. Lu Qingdi would always only remember the death anniversary of the imperial consort. Only imperial consort Su would personally make a bowl of longevity noodles for him every year, and then prepare a table of noodles for him that he liked. It wasn't that she wasn't moved, but after some things were exposed, her true feelings were more like a joke. In Li Hongyuan's previous life, the best birthday gift was a set of clothes made for him by Jingwan. It was also during the period when she saved his life to recuperate. She used the best cloth available and suddenly sent it to him when he didn't notice. There was no complicated embroidery. It was just cut and made into clothes. She was calm. She didn't know how to embroider, but the stitching of that set of clothes was done very well, and it unexpectedly fit him well. Then, Jingwan used all the edible wild vegetables and game she could find to make a table of noodles that was said to be sumptuous under the circumstances at that time. Of course, it was far inferior to the cooking skills of the chef. Some of it could be said that it was barely edible. However, Li Hongyuan almost cleaned up the table of dishes. In this life, Li Hongyuan actually knew that Wanwan was really not good at cooking and needlework. Master, this is sent by the female protector. Eunuch Mu presented a small box to Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan knew that Nurse Gong was very dissatisfied with his behavior, especially after Wanwan came to the capital. When she was his subordinate before, even if she was dissatisfied, she would not show it. Now, she was almost directly fighting with him. It was really strange that she would send something to him today. Li Hongyuan took it and opened it casually. There was a letter on it, and there seemed to be something like a brocade handkerchief under it. After unfolding the letter and reading it, Li Hongyuan's face changed immediately. He closed the box fiercely and looked at Eunuch Mu coldly. Get out. Eunuch Mu hurriedly left, thinking, what did the female protector give to the master that made him want to kill me? Li Hongyuan threw the letter aside and burned it. He opened the box, and then unfolded the thing inside with both hands. This was a belly band. It was said that Jingwan personally made the belly band for herself. It was the only clothes she made for herself, and the only finished needlework she made. Li Hongyuan stared at the white undergarment with a serious face. He did not doubt that it was made by Jingwan at all. He was very familiar with the stitches on the edge. Just by looking at this, people who did not know would think that she was an expert in this field. But looking at the pattern inside, although it was not too terrible to look at, it was not much better. This should be a kitten playing with an embroidered ball, right? Li Hongyuan was not too sure. After all, the kitten's outline was only roughly embroidered, and it was a little crooked. As for the embroidered ball, it was better not to talk about it. Li Hongyuan put the undergarment in his arms and went back to the bedroom. Except that his pace was a little fast, Eunuch Mu did not see anything strange. Needless to say, a certain king of hell liked this gift very much, and he almost turned into a beast. If Nanny Gong's purpose was to think that he was not angry enough and wanted to use this undergarment to stimulate him, then Nanny Gong's purpose had been achieved, and it was seriously overdone. Not to mention how Lu Qingdi almost pulled out his beard and hair these days, he even secretly asked people to invite Li Hongyuan to the palace. Yes, it was an invitation, but this bastard did not give him any face. In the end, Elder Yuan was reasonable and said that the emperor's order could not be disobeyed, and the emperor's power could not be swept away. The emperor was the emperor. For the officials, thunder and rain were the emperor's grace. It was the blessing of the emperor to give his daughter a marriage. Lu Qingdi's heart was as carefree as drinking a bowl of iced soup on a hot summer day. Such a good official must be rewarded. He also said that on the day Ruan Fangfei married into the Jin mansion, except that she was not popular, the rest of the treatment was the same as the princess who married into the Jin mansion. This was to raise the value of Ruan Fangfei, and it was also to slap the face of Ding General Manor. Naturally, some families were happy, and some were sad. For this matter, Ruan Ruizhong had no opinion at all. Li Hongyuan did not believe it. In the end, the reason why he could accept this matter without being angry was that he was persuaded by Ruan Fangfei, except for being loyal to the emperor. The reason was nothing more than that. In addition, Ruan Ruizhong loved Ruan Fangfei very much. He knew that she had feelings for Li Hongyuan. In addition, things had come to this point, so he could only help her. And he was very clear that if he really had a tough attitude and opposed this marriage, it would definitely not be Lu Qingdi who compromised in the end. If he really annoyed Lu Qingdi, he would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. As a minister, no matter where you climb, unless your power could overpower the emperor or even overturn a dynasty, you should always remember one thing: the emperor is the emperor, and the minister is the minister. If you really dared to accept all the benefits given by the superior and became arrogant because of the favor, then you were not far from death. Ruan Ruizhong was able to climb to today's position and stay out of the treacherous vortex of fighting for the throne. Was it really just because of his super ability and skill, and did not have the slightest intention of flattering and of currying favor? As for the article submitted by Sun Yijia, Lu Qingdi seemed to directly suppress it. He did not reprimand Sun Yijia, nor did he attach more importance to him. It was like before, as if nothing had happened. Because there was no such thing in the previous life, Li Hongyuan did not know if there would be a follow-up. But whether there was or not, it had nothing to do with him. If it involved Chen Jingmin and then Wan, he would find a way to clean up the mess. Therefore, there was no need to care about it for the time being, and he just needed to wait quietly. Great Elder Princess was the biological sister of Lu Qingdi, and she had a good relationship with Lu Qingdi. After Lu Qingdi ascended the throne, he conferred her the title of Great Elder Princess. What was rare was that she was very noble and had a good temperament. In addition, her husband was the son of an aristocratic family with outstanding talent, character, and appearance. Compared with others, he was more indulgent and free and unrestrained. What was more, he took the initiative to marry Great Elder Princess. After marriage, they were deeply in love with each other. The only thing that made her unhappy was that her husband had a cousin who was his childhood sweetheart and had lost her parents at a young age. It was obvious what the result would be in such a situation. She did not want to be estranged from her husband, so even if she was a princess, she had to be virtuous and generous. Such a person, even if she did not have power, many people wanted to draw her to their side. Unfortunately, for so many years, Great Elder Princess's mansion had always been neutral. She did not take sides with any side and lived her own life leisurely. Because her husband did not like it, the mansion rarely invited guests. Most of the guests who visited the mansion were the relatives of the royal family and her husband's relatives. Great Elder Princess's birthday was such a rare opportunity to curry favor with her, so few people would miss it. Even those who did not want to curry favor with her would not be absent for no reason because of His Majesty. After all, as long as there were guests at Great Elder Princess's birthday banquet, Lu Qingdi would definitely reward them. Who dared not to give face to His Majesty? Therefore, this banquet was definitely one of the most lively banquets in the capital city. It would gather all kinds of people, including those who were neutral. The period before the banquet naturally belonged to the regular flower appreciation banquet, which was for the girls to compete with each other and show off their talents. It was for the young masters to compete with each other, whether in order to attract girls or to attract the attention of a certain lord. It was for the ladies to make friends with each other, and if they had children of the right age, they could look at each other. It was for the lords to suppress their opponents and win over their allies. These things were carried out so blatantly. As the birthday girl, Great Elder Princess happily received the congratulatory gifts from everyone, listened to all kinds of free flattery, looked at the gorgeously dressed girls, and praised the handsome boys of each family. Anyway, she did not have any children of the right age, so she did not have to worry about them at all. No matter whether they were immortals or demons, if something happened, they would not be blamed on her. The reason was that there were too many people today, and the mansion of Great Elder Princess was not staffed enough. She simply borrowed people from the Ministry of Internal Affairs to help her. Her people did not care about anything except greeting the guests, taking what the guests needed, and leading the way. As for the girls of the Luo family, as long as they were over 10 years old, including the Luo Jingying who was getting closer and closer to the wedding, Madame Luo allowed them to come out together to see the world. However, she repeatedly told them that because there were too many people, they must stay with their sisters and were not allowed to walk around without permission. Madame Luo naturally agreed to her words. Although people from all walks of life gathered in Great Elder Princess's mansion, those who were not of high status were not even qualified to step over the threshold. Naturally, the children and grandchildren of the Luo family naturally needed the guidance of elders who could handle the situation. To be honest, before Madame Luo came to the capital city, even Madame Wang was not qualified to bring the younger generation to Great Elder Princess's mansion. In the past, at most, Luo Peishan brought his children and grandchildren who were willing to come, while the people in the harem could only look at the sea and sigh. Therefore, not to mention Jingwan, it was the first time for the other girls to come here, and they all looked a little excited. Luo Jingying was no longer mature and prudent, and Luo Jingying was no longer simple and elegant. Even for Luo Jingyu, Jingwan gave her a full set of beautiful and valuable jewelry. After knowing that she did not have suitable jewelry to match her clothes, she also gave her a few sets of clothes that she had not worn before. After all, she was only 1 year younger than Jingwan, and the clothes only needed a little modification to fit her. In fact, after Concubine Ji's modification, the effect of the clothes was very good. Even Luo Jingyu, who was used to being silent, felt that she was just a quiet and shy little beauty. Needless to say, Jingwan never had to worry about these aspects. She knew how to dress on what occasion. There was also the daughter of a concubine of the first branch, who ranked 6th, and the daughter of a legal wife of the 4th branch, who ranked 7th. These two little girls were both 10 years old. Unlike their sisters, they still had their hair in buns and looked delicate and lively. Old Madame Luo was very satisfied with her delicate granddaughter and couldn't stop smiling. When they arrived at Great Elder Princess's mansion, because there were too many people, the people who greeted them were also from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. They went directly to Great Elder Princess to wish her a happy birthday, and then the male and female guests went separately. Because Madame Luo and Great Elder Princess were not friends, naturally, she did not stay long. After all, there was a big age gap between them.